it going, guys? It's your boy, Lieutenant Dan, here for the Grounded Falcons Podcast, Episode 1. If you are watching on YouTube right now, you're getting the full view, the video view of everything that's going on. Thank you so much for being here and part of this new podcast we're starting here on January 2nd, 2024, only 7 days away from my 33rd birthday. So that's going to be a lot of fun, and thank you so much for everybody coming through. Happy New Year to all of you who are just listening to this podcast for the first time, or just stepping in to hear some of the draft talk, or just stepping in to get an idea of what I'm going to throw down on the table for you guys. And so, again, thank you so much for those of you who are listening on Spotify and wherever you consume your resource for podcasts. And for those of you that are currently listening on the YouTube side of things and seeing my face and listening to me right now, this is going to be a long ride, okay? So get yourself buckled in, grab your coffee, get yourself a drink, just kind of muscle up, prepare, because we're going in. We're going in right now. The Atlanta Falcons, 2023. Who wants to go and say this, that, or the third about the Atlanta Falcons in 2023? Empty promises. Specifically just a bad set of circumstances that have come through, bad decisions made. And now we sit at the precipice of what the Atlanta Falcons have been trying to accomplish. The end of the season where win and you're in, but you also need the Bucs to lose to the Panthers. Yes, the Atlanta Falcons are sitting at the number 2 or number 3 spot as of the time of this recording and live show that you guys are starting to watch. And as everybody trickles in and begins to go in, and I'll say hi to everybody kind of when we're done with the initial podcast episode, I want to thank everybody for supporting this channel and supporting what we do. No matter what we do, whether it's the regular content that we put out or just restarting here in 2024 to kind of get an idea. But I wanted to get some things off my chest, and I wanted to make this podcast because I have some things that I think Falcons fans need to completely understand, and they probably already do. But also in that same vein, I also wanted to be like, hey, you know what? We need to be all on track. We all really need to be on track. So hello to everyone in the chat who's coming through. Thank you so much for the support. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe button. Check us out on Spotify when this episode drops. I'm going to throw it onto the X/Twitter, whatever that is, whatever that social media platform is at this point. But let's get straight into it. Let's talk a little bit about how we got here, why we're here, and more or less, let's talk a little bit about the repercussions of being in this spot. So the Atlanta Falcons, 2020, new coaching staff, bring in the board, the group, everybody in here. And here we are with a first-round so-called unicorn tight end in Kyle Pitts, who has incredible talent without question. A first-round wide receiver in Drake London, who has incredible talent and definitely can make an impact on this team. And look, is wide receiver 1, but there are question marks about him, whether or not he's legitimately the do-all wide receiver that you can have, but without question, talented and knows what he's doing and can be competent in that spot. And then in the third year of this building process, you have added Bijan Robinson, absolutely stud, fantastic running back out of the University of Texas. And as of the time of this recording and this live show, and if you're watching on the live show, then you probably already see my eyes going, oh boy, here we go. The University of Texas has lost their playoff game to the Washington Huskies last night, and Alabama was trumped by Michigan. So next Monday, we will have Michigan versus Washington for the national championship, which this is one of the first years in quite a while that we don't have Clemson, Alabama, or Georgia in the national championship conversation or picture, or Ohio State. Let's just make sure that we put that out there as well for those of you that are part of Buckeye Nation. Sorry that you didn't make it this year, but, Be that as may. I look at this Falcons team right now and say you've gone 3 years to the well to go grab yourself pass catchers, shiny hood ornaments, tires, wheels, rims. You got a fresh paint job on the car. And truly, this team was in the absolute of dire straits when Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith took over this team. We all remember it. No cap. 3 to 4 players basically eating up 70% of your cap. A team mentally and emotionally and spiritually gutted by the previous regime. And one that was going to take multiple years to discover who they were and put it all together. And for 3 straight years, the Atlanta Falcons turned a blind eye to the development or acquisition of a first-round talent quarterback. And for 3 straight years, Arthur Smith decided not to put his fingerprints on this team with the idea that this is my guy, I roll with him, and he's going to lead us to success. You got outbid for Trey Lance. You passed on Justin Fields. And a plethora of other quarterbacks in this league that, albeit, have not necessarily shown anything really of worth, but could have been part of your building process. And now that you're at this point, a point that you've done everything to the vehicle that you could possibly do, except for check whether or not there's an engine, transmission, and oil within the engine, you have decided to now come up with the excuse, and it is beginning to churn. So prepare yourselves, Falcons fans, for Twitter and all these other places to give you this excuse if you're pro Arthur Smith or you're Arthur Blank potentially this offseason. That the way that you got here by mismanaging your quarterback position and coming up with substitutes. And they call them substitute teachers for a reason. Not because they're not knowledgeable, but because they are a substitute because there is a placeholder and someone that's supposed to be running this class. And you decided not to touch any of those guys and instead take cast-offs from other teams, other availabilities, other things that you could do. And in order to win games in this NFL, you must have a long-standing quarterback that's going to be with you till the end. So, 3 seasons have gone by. You ran Matt Ryan out of town because you had to make adjustments, because you had to open up your cap. We can be mad at that if we want, but the reality of the situation is that they were not in a position to be able to keep Ryan, and Ryan was falling off the cliff, i.e., go look at him in Indianapolis, albeit there is a little bit of an asterisk there as well because of an offensive line that was broken. And then decided to go get Marcus Mariota, someone who you were familiar with, instead of developing said quarterback behind Ryan or developing said quarterback when you had an opportunity to cement a guy in year 2. You picked up Marcus Mariota as a quote-unquote bridge quarterback, albeit now that we have hindsight and we are looking at this, he was really trying to make him the starter in full. And Terry Fontenot, your new GM, your Saints stolen GM apprentice, has come here to Atlanta and had to get a third-round talent quarterback behind your Marcus Mariota and say, whoa, pump them brakes. We need at least some out for this because if your plan doesn't work, we need somebody to be able to take over the helm. We don't have a QB room, and we still don't have the money. The year goes by. Things happen. Marcus Mariota does Marcus Mariota things, as we all know. And Desmond Ridder, underdeveloped in his first year, albeit practicing every single day, is not getting any of the game time, and then walks in for 4 games and looks 50-50. The talent is there, but the style of quarterback value, if you want to say, was not there. And so coming into another season, you end up picking up Tyler Heineke on request because you don't like Desmond Ridder. And you know that he's not going to develop quick enough for you to be able to make an actual impact into one of your final years to prove something, to get to the playoffs, to actually go win the division, to take control of your destiny as a coach and get a secondary contract. And upon doing those things, you have left yourself in a bit of a pickle. And what is that pickle? Kyle Pitts has suffered as a tight end. By the way, number 4 overall pick from a few years ago. Drake London has had an up and down career so far with Atlanta, albeit the talent is there and you can see it. And he's the only real competent wide receiver outside of, and I'm going to say this with a bit of malice behind it, KhaDarel Hodge. And on top of all of these things, because I like KhaDarel Hodge and I like Drake London, but, you know, you're talking about KhaDarel Hodge and Drake London. There's not another wide receiver in that group. They would love to have some help. And above all those things, you promise this Falcons organization and fan base that the one thing that I know how to do well, put an offensive line together and run the darn ball. You pick Bijan Robinson, and he was electric this year. He did so many amazing things. But the moment that you saw an out to get out of the way from Ridder, because you don't know how to develop a quarterback, and you also didn't want to develop said Ridder quarterback, that's the reason why you brought in Heineke in the first place anyway, you benched him, put Heineke in, and the problem didn't change. So that's strike 3. You ran the franchise quarterback out for good reason, but it's still a strike. You went out and you got Marcus Mariota, and that was a terrible decision. That's on you, Smith. Strike 2. And then you requested and demanded that Heineke be the guy behind, just in case Ridder doesn't do well. You put Ridder out there and have a scheme where wide receivers are all running in the same exact plays. A passing game that has done absolutely nothing. And yet, Ridder still tries to outshine those instances, gets benched, Heineke comes in, and nothing changes. So now you have a problem. Strike 3. You've made 3 decisions, and have come up short on all of those decisions. You have decided the fate of the Atlanta Falcons year in and year out, and Bijan Robinson comes out here as your 3rd first-round offensive draft pick, and you have yet to really put a real offensive line on the field outside of what you currently have in Lindstrom and Bergeron. Jake Matthews beginning to age. McGarry obviously has issues, and we keep playing this Dahlman Hennessy back and forth at center. And you bring Bijan Robinson in, and he begins to fumble the ball at a pretty decent rate. Not a high rate, but a decent rate. And Tyler Algier looks like the better rusher after a 1,000-yard season rushing the ball. And you needed to go grab another running back. So take all that information in for a second. Allow it to marinate. Allow yourself to have your bias be put aside for a second and look at the straight facts of the matter. Decisions were made. Players did not develop. Opportunities did not increase on offense. And all the while, Terry Fontenot was building you a defense. Zach Harrison emergence. Campbell gets another opportunity and comes out and balls. Grady Jarrett and Onyemata and Caden Ellis, who were all retained and or added to this group, become superstars. Albeit Grady got hurt at the end of the year, so we're missing him so badly, and we hope that he comes back healthy next year, and we hope he continues to play. The emergence of Arnold Ebiketie, who everybody was a little tired of and wanted to kind of move on from, has started to develop under Ryan Nielsen. Clark Phillips who was not played nearly at all, comes in at the end of the season for Jeff Okudah, who had gotten hurt, and comes out and begins to ball. DeMarco Hellams, a safety out of Alabama, a late-round draft pick, comes in and begins to lay the wood down and starts putting some things down. Nate Landman and Troy Anderson. Stop me when I'm wrong. Stop listening to this podcast when you finally get irritated of the facts that I'm trying to say here. That the defense did everything it was supposed to do and began getting sacks, which you're asking for, began getting pressures, which you were excited for, and started getting turnovers and keeping games close. And yet the offense continued to be the issue. The one, by the way, that was told to us that was going to be great, that was going to run the ball over everyone, ended up throwing almost 40 times a game. And the man who has been supplying all of those things to Arthur Smith, Terry Fontenot, has quietly and surely been adding defensive staff in his own way, at his own pace. Even though one of his defensive coordinators ended up leaving, he brought in another guy he knew would get the job done and still succeeded, despite all of the offensive woes and the things that are going on. Atlanta fans, you have sack masters playing for your defense right now. And yet I hear every single day that we need John Abraham. We've been traumatized into thinking we need another 10.5 sack, 15.5 sack guy. When you look at the group, and you've never seen this before. And it's not Atlanta fans' fault. They've been traumatized. They've been traumatized by an 81 going on 82-year-old owner who continues to meddle with things he does not understand. I won't say it's all Arthur Blank's fault. In fact, actually, it really comes back down to the nucleus once again. That Arthur Smith's plan and vision was never to develop any players on offense, but to get immediate success derived off of premier top talent every single year in the draft. The utilization of the current talent from the Atlanta Falcons has been less than par. Subpar. That's the verb. That's the verbiage that you need to hear. And vicariously, because of said downgrade from offense, and because it has flashes of brilliance and then the next time it looks like it is incompetent to a fault, the defense has therefore struggled and been incapable. It's not undoable, but incapable of keeping up with the race that is put in front of them, the challenges and hurdles that they must overcome to allow this offense to have the ball back over and over and over and over and over. You know, there's a really good story in the Bible, and I know a lot of people will probably be like, oh, he's going to say some Bible verse, I'm out of here. But I just want you to hear this. Just once. I promise not to get into your mind too much. But Jesus once was traveling on the road with his disciples, and he went across the path of a fig tree. And Jesus said to the fig tree, bear fruit. And it did not. And so Jesus said that I curse you for not bearing fruit. Wither and die. And so it did. And upon that command and upon that tree withering and dying, the disciples came over to him and said, but my Lord, it's not its season to bear fruit. It's not its time to give us that fruit. And Jesus said, It is by my command that it should bear fruit. And therefore, because it does not bear fruit, it must leave. And some people don't understand this parable or this story, and so I'll break it down very quickly. Jesus being God, commanding that fruit tree to bear fruit, and the tree does not obey, the tree then is commanded to wither. Because he was the Son of God. And if it had bore fruit and given it to Jesus, then it would not have perished. But because it listened to the king of the air, to the devil, and tried to stay with the laws of the world that is the structure of the world, it began to not bear fruit. I will not listen to you, God. I will not listen to what's going on here. So to bring it back from quite a deep piece there, Arthur Blank has asked for a winning team. Multi-million-dollar old man. And has asked Arthur Smith to bear fruit. And Arthur Smith has said, well, my way is the way in which this will be structured. But the template of creating a team is offensive line and quarterback first. It has never, ever gone wrong if you follow that template. Yes, you will add defensive players. Yes, you will add these things. Yes, you will add tight ends. Yes, you will add running backs. Yes, you will add these pieces, but you will add these pieces as the template is filled. So if you do not do these things, you are saying to the owner, my way or the highway, and I know better. And because you did these things and you've come to this conclusion, you cannot come to the owner at the end of the day, or come to Jesus at the end of the day and say, I followed all your teachings. I did everything that I thought was right. And I just need a little bit more. Bringing it back to football. Arthur Blank, I've just had no luck with quarterbacks. And I need a quarterback. Mr. Smith, you had Ryan, Mariota, Henneke, and Ritter. And regardless of the talent levels, you spent draft picks. My NFL cap dollars on these players. And therefore, you have failed. I asked you to bear fruit. You did not bear any. I asked you to do something that is not impossible. It is probable by the will. But you did not will it. If these are the results, and now you come to me and ask me to now spend massive cap dollars on Kirk Cousins or Jimmy Garoppolo, or going out and getting Trey Lance in a trade, or going out and getting, pick your veteran, Russell Wilson, bringing these guys in, and you think that is going to make the team better. No, duh, any competent quarterback is going to make this better. But I told you to do this now, and you passed on quarterback 3 years in a row. It's almost as if Arthur Smith is Peter. The rooster will crow 3 times, and you will deny me. 1, 2, 3 drafts, you did it your way. You never invested in this group. And therefore, you fail. And it's by those failures, it's by the type of leadership that you do that now opens the floodgates to Terry Fontenot to come in with his fist and bang on the table and say, I gave him everything that he asked for that you told me he got to ask for. I gave him everything that he wanted. He said he wanted this guy and that guy, and it was not by circumstance that we ended up here. It is by the leadership of Arthur Smith that we got here. It's not because the offensive line didn't have continuity. It's because the offensive line doesn't have that talent, and we've been lied to. It's not because the quarterbacks don't have talent. It's because your scheme sucks for those quarterbacks, and those quarterbacks are subpar when it comes to trying to make big-time impact plays. Don't lie to me that Desmond Ridder has not made plays this season, but the unfortunate side effect of that is that Desmond Ridder is not developed. Don't tell me that Heineke has not gone out there and thrown touchdowns or run for them. But he's also thrown 3 interceptions in a single game. And it's because by your system and your development and your decisions to place these quarterbacks in these places that you have brought this team to this point. Do not come to me and ask for a premier quarterback or a top draft pick quarterback to change things here, because any of the other 31 teams in this league can do the same exact thing, but I will not give you the forgiveness that you are asking for. Because you have proved to me that your way or the highway has not worked, and that Terry Fontenot on the opposite end of the spectrum, on the defensive side of the ball, has done well and bore fruit for me. I asked for sacks, they came. I asked for interceptions, they came. I asked for good defensive play from the running game to the passing game, and it came. But I cannot expect these guys, these mechanics, to push a car down the road that has no engine. No development from Ridder, no development from Heineke. You came in here and brought Mariota in, and you ran Matt Ryan out of town, and on top of all those things, you missed every single impact quarterback that now you as fans, not the coach, but you as fans, are drooling over. Justin Fields. I won't even give you other examples of other quarterbacks that are going on, because the situation is so muddy on every other team that I don't know how those quarterbacks will develop as time goes on. We'll just have to see how that story ends for those guys. But you had opportunities, and you had chances, and you didn't do it. And that's on you. Not on the fans, not on the players of the field. Your incompetence, your ego trip got us here. Meanwhile, Terry Fontenot, the GM, has set us up not only this past year, but this coming year with multi-million dollars of open cap and a defense under Ryan Nielsen and Mr. Jerry Gray, who have gone out there and actually basically won most of the games that the Falcons have won this year. So I'm going to end this first episode on the Spotify side of things that I'm making the episode for, and continue to do the live show. Make sure you check us out, Unintentional Grounding, on YouTube for longer episodes. But to end the Spotify part of this episode, the Atlanta Falcons, in no way, shape, or form, have proven in any way on offense that they are capable of taking a team to win the division, beat their division rivals, or go to the Super Bowl, or even go to the playoffs. So as this begins to develop, as this thing begins to end about to get to the end of the road, we have now begun to see the demise of a head coach whose ego ate him up, and he went and got all those shiny nickels and didn't do anything with them. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope to catch you again on another episode of the Grounded Falcons podcast. Catch you later, guys. For those of you on the YouTube side that have been listening to this and listening to this podcast episode, I have a bit more, as that part of the podcast is beginning to process. Please don't leave. I have not ended yet. I have a few more things to say, with a bit of venom in my mouth. I do not wish to curse anyone. I do not wish to derail the facts of the matter that offensive players on this team have done great. Matthew Bergeron, amazing. Chris Lindstrom, amazing. Running backs, amazing. Wide receiving core worked as hard as they possibly could to do good things. the defensive side of the ball is not the problem anymore. Does it need depth? Yes. Does it need work? Yes. But is it bearing fruit? Yes. Is the offense bearing fruit? Everybody in the chat over here, yes or no? Is it bearing fruit? There is no in between. I want to see it. Every yes or no. Simple answer for everyone in the chat. I say to you and to everyone that's currently thinking about this, who watched these games last night for the college football playoff, I say to you this. Whether it's Michael Penix Jr. or it's Caleb Williams on a trade up that takes all of our draft picks, or Drake May, or Jaden Daniels, or any of these other premier passers, I even like what Ewers did last night. But no matter what it is at this point, you cannot say with with any smile on your face, with any factual evidence that Arthur Smith has done anything for this team outside of kick the rock down the road. And that, ladies and gentlemen, should be the signal, the fire, the smoke that's coming over the trees to signal you that there's something wrong. Heavily wrong. Have your debates and have your discussions on your social media platforms or at the barbershop or in the office or wherever you end up working or on your days when you're listening to podcasts, screaming inside your own car about this X and Y and Z to yourself. But no matter what you're talking to or who you're talking to or what kind of reasoning you have, you cannot deny that the Atlanta Falcons right now are defensively driven, have a better chance defensively to do great things, and that this offense is starving and the players will not want to re-sign with this team. That the offensive group and the defensive group have looked at this team and said, what a failure for 3 years. What promises could you possibly give me that we're going to do better and we're going to reach the highest of heights? What could you possibly do to say that this is going to work? Nothing. There's nothing you could do. 1,000-yard rusher in Tyler Algier, and you brought in Bijan Robinson. Don't talk about the talent of Bijan. Don't talk about how great it is to have him. Those are all blessings. But you already had it. You picked up Drake London because you ran out most of the wide receivers in that wide receiver room. And you brought in Drake London. And that guy right there is sitting on the sideline most games with his head held low because you're barely throwing to him. Put yourself in Kyle Pitts' shoes. Drafted number 4 overall. Had a 1,000-yard season with a touchdown from Matt Ryan. A capable MVP, future Hall of Fame quarterback who will be, by the by, commentating on our game against the New Orleans Saints on Sunday on CBS or Fox or wherever it's going to end up being. And boy, oh boy, if the Falcons lose, the death rattle will happen for Arthur Smith. The guy who was drafted in 2008 and ran all the way to 2020. The guy who, and I've shared this video out so many times, but the guy who just pulled us out of so much crap is going to commentate on our game this coming Sunday. And if we fail, what words could he possibly say? What spicy takes and bits will we possibly slice up out of what he says on Sunday? and lay at the feet of Arthur Blank and say, what do you do? Terry Fontenot has worked very hard and diligently to get us out of cap hell and bring us to a place where we can be better. Has provided a defense that is competent and works. And done everything that Arthur Smith has asked, including going behind him and saying we've got to have somebody and drafting Ritter. And you're telling me that we should bring Arthur Smith back for another year. I will go and draft, if I had the opportunity, I will go draft Michael Penix Jr., Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Caleb Williams on a trade-up any day of the week, flip a coin and make it happen, regardless of what happens in the future, to go bring that franchise guy in right now, to go make throws like they were making last night and go watch all those highlight tapes of all those plays from those players, from those legitimate franchise quarterbacks, regardless of what you think about the overall little bits that you want to poke holes at of every one of those guys. I will literally take any one of those 4 guys today over anything that we have done over these last 3 years, and that's including Bijan. Call me crazy, but if this is the result, and you have results from other players doing better than your current number 4 overall drafted pick, number 8 overall drafted pick, and number 8 overall drafted pick, then we've got a problem. We've got an issue. When Jonnu Smith and Michael Pruitt are doing better than Kyle Pitts, that's a problem. When Tyler Algier's out here running 1,000 yards and you pick up another running back because you need it, that's a problem. When you pick up Drake London because you ran everybody out of the wide receiving room because you're like, oh, we don't need any wide receivers, but we got to have at least one, that's a problem. That's a deep issue. Long story short, I'm going to say this. Fire Arthur Smith. Don't give me who you want in replacement, because any of the toys from the island of misfit toys could coach this better. The decision-making on an egotistical level is what got us here. And here we are. So I say this. Whether it's any of those 4 guys or someone that currently has something they can do for the future, do not go get Kirk Cousins. Don't try to trade for Kyler Murray. Don't take somebody else's underdeveloped or developed quarterback just so that you can get better. Learn the hard way. Make the difference and take a guy like a Matt Ryan or a Michael Vick, the next one of those guys. Put your stamp on, put your hand, your fingerprints on everything that is happening there. That's what I feel that Terry Fontenot should do. That's what I feel that this Falcons team should do. If they want to turn this around, they need to admit to the fans that we need a little more time to develop this group, that we've got a defense that can do something now, and that we're going to still add to it. But we need to work our offensive line. We need to bring in a real quarterback. And we need to take some of these pieces and develop them in the correct way, in the right way, in order to get the best out of them. You already pissed off Cordero Patterson, which means if there's one guy that's pissed off in the locker room, that means there's more than one guy pissed off in the locker room. They just haven't said it. I'm going to say something that everybody in this entire live stream is going to freak out about and call me a hater. You have run out of time with Kyle Pitts. You are currently in a sticky situation about using the 5th-year option on him. And with other tight ends doing a better job blocking and catching, You must now make a decision this offseason. Package him in a trade and move him somewhere where he can be utilized, or try so hard to salvage what you have broken. Because it is broken. And that is the facts and the truth. You have wasted his time. $10 million. Let that sink in. Let that get into your mind hole. And understand that's what you owe him next year. If you're going to do something, if you're going to begin to build this team, you need a better offensive line and you need a better quarterback. And it starts there and nowhere else. Don't talk to me about sack masters. Don't talk to me about offensive weapons. Don't talk to me about the next big thing in the first round. Talk to me about the hog mollies in the trenches. Talk to me about the guy that makes exquisite passes and utilizes his legs to keep defensive teams honest. Until you do that, do not come to me and tell me about someone else's offerings or someone else's cast off at quarterback because they couldn't do the job to develop those guys or they made the wrong decisions. Start your journey now and begin a process towards a Super Bowl. My name is Lieutenant Dan. This is Unintentional Grounding Live. Thank you so much for listening. Share this out to your friends and your family. This entire podcast was a lot of fun to do. Make sure you check out the Grounded Falcons podcast on Spotify. We'll put out that episode soon that you just heard. And support the channel by making sure that you sub to the channel, subscribe, like, share the channel out, and help us continue to grow and build as we move forward. Peace, hair grease, and rise up to all the people in the chat who came through and made this day an absolutely wonderful day and made this whole podcast possible. I'll talk to you guys again real soon. Later, guys.